Hello, I'm Roy Richardson, and this is the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Welcome to this week's edition of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Roy Richardson. The Dynamic Leaders Podcast is brought to you by Aurora InfoTech, cybersecurity firm catering to the information security needs of small to medium-sized businesses in the Central Florida area. Today's episode, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Sean Murphy. Sean is a senior business advisor with South State Bank, the largest Florida-based bank with around $65 billion in assets. With 30 years of experience in Central Florida, Sean brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to our conversation. A University of Miami graduate in economics, Sean has also undergone executive leadership training at Harvard, Deloitte, and Crummer. Beyond his impressive professional credentials, Sean spent almost a decade serving as a combat medic in the Florida Army National Guard. Thank you for your service, Sean. Join us as we dive into Sean's journey, insights, and the valuable advice that he has for business owners and leaders. Let's get started. Sean, welcome. It's so great to have you here with us today. I'm looking forward to sharing your journey with our audience.
Well, thank you, Roy, for having me. I'm very, very excited as well. And I just remember when you kicked this off a few years back, I was excited about it. And then reviewing it, the ones you did, man, very impressive, and couldn't wait to for this day to come. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, my friend. Awesome. Well, so I know a bit about your journey because we've spent we have history here, right? I mean, we go back to our days at the University of Miami, and full disclosure, I mean, Sean and I were in college together. We're fraternity brothers. We know each other many years, and we're in the same economic circles and stuff here. So, and we keep tab on each other. Our families know each other, etc. But very impressive career, Sean, I may say. That you have carved out here for yourself in Central Florida, and particularly in the banking industry, etc. So, tell me a little bit and share with us, a little bit about your journey, what inspired you to pursue your career path, and how it's helped shape who you are today.
Well, cool. Yeah. And so, like you said, for full disclosure, you're a part of this. When we were at the University of Miami, running around campus, you were one of those folks that would encourage me. You might not have known that, but, seeing you out there hustling made me want to hustle. But yeah, no, walked out of my, from the hood of New Orleans, got kicked out of all public schools, crazy background, got sent to Okeechobee, Florida. Fast forward, get to the University of Miami, my freshman year of college. I was not at the University of Miami at that time, but took an accounting course. And something said to me, man, finance is the way to go. If you know how to manage your finances, you can, change your world and your trajectory. And so at that point, leaned into finance and came here out of college, graduated in '93, came here looking to do a political stint while I worked to go to law school to do mergers and acquisitions. Believe it or not, I wanted to do mergers and acquisitions.
Nice.
But wanted to be in the middle market. Even back then, knew Florida was a middle market, second stage company heavy state, and it would be that way for a while. So I just hooked my my hook on that, and the journey was a little bit of a I won't say a tough journey, but it was a journey of spent 10 years as a wealth advisor, as a stockbroker back in the day, right across the street from where I'm at today. And that, built huge character and who I am, because we were cold calling, and it was dial for dollars. I don't have family money to call on and say, hey, you got an IRA account, can you come open an account and get me over my goals? So I had to really become sharp at cold calling, presenting ideas to prospects, overcoming objections. Last night, it was funny. I was with my wife last night. We were having dinner at home, and she's like, I love the fact that you lean into no. And, it's like, I will call you until you tell me no. I'm not going to assume that just because you're not calling me or, responding to my emails, that there's no business deal there. You have to literally put it in black and white or tell me, hey, Sean, there's no deal there. Other than that, I'm going to bug you until you. And so anyway, I learned that from back then, and to never ever give up. That firm gave me a week to sell $500,000 of bonds back in '93, or '95,
Wow.
which is a big deal. And if you think about it, municipal bonds or stuff that retirees are the people that purchase. And so I was having to call older white men who were the dominant retirees, and half them were like, ain't no Sean Murphy, and wouldn't talk to me. And one of the other things that gave me was how to be just a critical thinker and just think outside of the box and never give up. Just again, until you tell me no, I'm going to come up with, okay, maybe you're not returning my calls because I'm bringing the wrong idea. And so out of that, I came up with a creative, and maybe it was someone else. I don't remember if I don't want to take credit for something that I didn't do, but we came up with a creative way to sell bonds. And so we sold bonds that young, successful, highly successful doctors and business people would buy. They're called treasury strips, where there's a lot of safety involved with it, but you get the upside. The U.S. Treasury market is the largest investment market in the world. It dwarfs the stock market. And so came up with that idea. And the day before they told me on Monday that I had until Friday to sell these bonds. That Thursday, up until that point, I was down for dollars. That Thursday at 4:00, and there's guys, one's in Tampa, Jim Stevenson, Mitch Ronco here in Orlando. They can all tell you the story. I went to Mitch. He was the manager. I was like, man, I'm not going to make it. And I'm going to, take the test, a Series 7 test tomorrow. And I'm going to try to find somewhere else to work. And as soon as I said that, the phone rang, and two of the prospects that I had been prospecting called in simultaneously.
Wow.
And bought enough to get me over the hump. And so I've never given up. And so fast forward, I interviewed with a global bank, coming out of Deloitte. Deloitte had me traveling, not like a consultant kind of travel, but it was enough travel. My team was national. I had no connection locally. I was working out of my house. And as you know, I'm an extrovert. I'm sorry. I love
Yeah, I was going to say you're the opposite.
Exactly. I love mixing it up and doing things. And so my role at Deloitte had me internal, supporting the practitioners out. And they really liked me in that role, but I did it long enough. And I was like, I want something different in Orlando. And so applied for a role with one of the larger banks in this similar type of role. And they turned me down. And, shame on them, because, I know I would have did very, very well in the role. And so, got this role. I was at another bank before here at the Leadership Institute. They wanted to, I was selling leadership services, and they wanted to put me in a role that I thought was just not helpful for my career. And I left Deloitte and I left Truist without a job. I had no idea where I was going to go. But I bet on myself, because I knew as long as I pick up the phone and dial for dollars, somebody would answer.
Right.
And so I landed here and love every minute of I'm in my Nirvana spot. I'm going to be doing this for another 20 years, man. And I love serving our market. And again, as you know, because we do a lot in the business world together, but I was built for this market, the second stage companies. Like I said, I graduated from the University of Miami thinking I'd be serving that market through M&A, but instead I'm doing financial work, and I still do some M&A stuff. Like I finance merger acquisitions. I was on the phone this morning, and I was emailing a CFO friend of mine this morning that we're working on a couple of deals where partners are buying out partners and things like that. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question.
Well, it certainly did, and what an amazing career, and what it tells me, and what it tells our audience is, don't stop. First of all, go until you get the no.
Right.
But also adversity builds character, right?
Oh yes.
Sense of, And sometimes we don't lean into that, right? In terms of leaning into you know where you came from, you know where you didn't want to end up, you know where you
That's
wanted
right.
to go, and
That's
and
right.
that helped propel and drive you forward and made you perhaps, I would say, even hungrier than most who take it for granted today.
That's right.
So
That's right.
awesome. So what along your journey, you've probably had to take some big risks. And I know you mentioned two just now, leaving two jobs without having a backup plan, right? But what are some of the biggest risks you've taken in your career, and how did they turn out for you?
Well, so those were risks that I took. Again, I knew that my network would be there to support me. But the biggest risk I took, which at that time I didn't have a network like I have now. Like now, it's like the phone rings and I don't even have to. It's beautiful. And when I left Tampa, and I'll get to your question, but I left Tampa
Mhm.
in 1996. That was when I was a wealth advisor or stockbroker. We were stockbrokers like that. I don't like the wealth advisor. That's why I got out of that business. But when I was a stockbroker, they moved me over. Mitch recommended that I go to Tampa to support our regional president in order to put me in like their training program to be a regional president. Or to be in management. I'm sorry for saying regional president, but to be in management. And so I was like, man, I am connected in Orlando and I want to stay local to Orlando, build something. So my kids' names will be synonymous in our community. Mario, if the Lord allows me to marry a woman whose family is prominent, that happened. That was a complete crazy story of how God's just been good to me. But
And
I
he
left.
blessed you.
Yes, incredibly, bro. Incredibly. But I'll tell you the craziest thing that's ever happened to me, and I have no regrets whatsoever. So back in 2000, um, in 2005, I was a stockbroker at Smith Barney at the time, one of the largest in the world, and I was searching for meaning. I do a lot of prayer and meditation. I'm a strong man of faith, and I was doing a bunch of Christian crusades and things like that. And one day, I was sitting out around 2 o'clock, and the crazy thing, my medical background helped me understand how important this is for personal development. So I was sitting outside, catching some fresh air, and something said, "Go start a Black business magazine." I'm like, "What?" I know nothing about business or magazines, and I left that business, left my book of business behind, and took couple of $100,000 of savings to try to launch a Black business magazine.
You see.
Taking the Economist Inc. magazine and the Harvard Business Review, putting that into one publication to serve the Black community and speak with some positive energy as well. And always just talk how, we can overcome. You don't need quotas and all of that stuff. And so the guy who called on that Thursday at 4 o'clock, I thought he would come through for me again with the magazine. And he had been a client of mine for 10 years at that point. And Ken is a great guy. I learned so much from him early on in my career, just again about this and about perseverance, because he's self-made as well. And so he looked at me when I presented my magazine idea, and he's like, "Sean, I'm tripling my money in real estate, man. And I go to sleep at night." And he showed me his bank statements. I had his wealth stuff, but I didn't have the bank statements and stuff like that. He sat we sat in his office in St. Cloud, and he showed me that stuff. He's like, "I don't have to earn but 2 to 3%. But if I lose a penny, I stay up all night." And to invest in a magazine versus real estate, that if it goes down, I can hold on to that real estate. And so that was the one thing that I'll tell you. I took a chance. I swung for the fences, failed at it, and I'm gonna tell you how good things are. Um, I I went to FEMA. I went to New Orleans working for FEMA as a home inspector during Hurricane Katrina, and my
Mhm.
wife and I, before that happened, my wife and I would go away every December and pray and meditate and ask the Lord to, show us where to go. And that December, that was that was '04. And he said, you're going to reconnect with your family in New Orleans. And so we went to Memphis. The family did a family reunion in Memphis that year in '05. And then fast forward to Katrina in August. And I was like, man, I know New Orleans frontwards and backwards. I don't need street signs to get around. You just tell me the street. I know exactly where it's at. Because as a kid growing up in New Orleans, we would get on our bikes and we would just be all out in the city, man, riding bikes, having fun. And so I did that. And as I'm trying to rebound from, the magazine failing, I get an email from, come to find out, the chairman of Deloitte's healthcare practice. Hey, send me your resume. I may have something for you. And
Nice.
fast forward 2 months, and I'd known him, but I didn't know his role. My wife and I were in a Bible study with him, and we don't really talk about that stuff in church, right? But he's like, man, I want to help you get off the road and, be with your wife. You're young, couple. And sure enough, that's how I got to Deloitte. So the moral of that story, Roy, is if you just continue to press forward and not give up, that good things are going to happen. You just got to be willing to dial the dollars, lean into a little bit of adversity, a little bit of rejection, but you got to stay true to who you are, because no doesn't necessarily mean I don't like you as an individual. No may be, hey man, my cousin's a wealth advisor. I give him my business and I don't have time to explain it to you. So, I never, again, I want the person across from me or on the other phone to tell me. And if they don't tell me, I don't assume why. And I just keep moving forward. Nobody's going to stop me from moving forward. So that was the big risk that I took. And that was the outcome. And this, your platform here, kind of full circles when you came to me with this. I'm like, heck yeah, because I've always wanted to speak to, the Black community. And so I started 4 years ago with a wonderful Wednesday quote, just trying to be positive to the community.
And I appreciate those quotes, by the way. Thank you for putting them out there.
Right. And it's not just for Blacks, but as a Black man, I do know some Black people will look at me and be like, hey, if he could do it, I can do it, which is easier, right? Because I look at it, you had asked, and some of the questions you had asked, some of the people that I look up to, like KFC, my mentors aren't necessarily, Black people, but I love some of the Black. In my office here, I got, Jordan, the attorney who was working for Lazard Freed as a Black man, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And you're like, what? How did he get that? You know what I mean? Dick Parsons from AOL, these guys were just like Ken Chenault, those are guys that I looked up to. But, I didn't have a personal relationship with them, but I had
right. But you had a role model in them.
I did. They had a role model, but I was able to find, the Lord was able to bring me local guys similar to them who didn't necessarily, they weren't Black, but they leaned into me. Mm-hmm. And they pushed the back of, again, me getting into Deloitte. John today is still a mentor of mine. And, I text him occasionally just out of gratitude. I'm so grateful that I got that, because the things that I learned from, when you're competing against, companies for $200 and $300 million contracts with Johnson & Johnson, global contracts, and you're getting to be a part of this stuff, you just can't take that away. You know what I mean? So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
that's right. Those are not things those are not things that fall into your lap every day either, right? So
that's right.
Impressive. And what's impressive here, and I think going back a little bit on what you said about, you took that risk. It didn't turn out the way that you wanted to, but you didn't let that break you, and you actually went further and went back to your home state during a disaster to help others, right? And through that, and through your church group and all that stuff. And I'm a firm believer, man, what you put out is what you get back, right? I mean, you put out good, and a lot of times I think we tend to put out good and we're waiting for that calculated measure to come back, reciprocate right away.
That's right.
But just put it out there, man, with no expectations. Someplace down the path, you might hit bumps in the road. There may be, disappointments, there may be ups and downs. But at some point in time, that good is going to be recognized. Is going to pay back, tenfold as it did for you. So
that's right.
Amazing, my friend, amazing. So, you talked about, and as you were going through this, I was thinking, how do you, stay motivated? And Sean, one thing I will say, and I'll share this with everybody, and you said it before, is what you see is what you get. What you see with you is what you get. You haven't changed, and I'm not going to age us, okay?
Right.
I'm
Right.
not going to age us, but
Right.
but but Sean has always been Sean. You know what I'm saying? There's no as the person that I knew back in university is the person I know today. It's always that person who's willing to go help others and willing to go the extra mile. So how do you stay motivated when things get tough in your personal work life?
Right.
I know,
Right.
especially with the current climate that we're in and putting politics aside and everything like that.
Right.
I mean, people are sort of walking around with big question marks in terms of, are they going to make it? They're not going to make it. I mean, you've seen a lot. Share with us.
Yeah. Well, I am grounded in my faith, but I'll tell you, when I was at the University of Miami, I wasn't. I just it's just been amazing to me. Again, it's kind of like the guys calling on that Thursday. That's kind of been my life. Here I am. My mother, me and I'm the product of a single parent household. My dad, you and I have spent more time than me and my dad spent more time together. And I'm talking about not you and I over the course of the last 30 years. I'm talking about because I'm talking about you and I in this little interaction here. So I had very little experience with him. But I'll tell you, when I was put on that Greyhound bus in '84 to go to Okeechobee, I don't know. I guess I was. Some of this is innate, and some of it when you see good coming out of, and my mother taught me that as well. That I will say that. I'm sorry. Yes, we that was instilled into me in New Orleans from my mother about, and my family, right? Um, just looking at things, not worrying about the negative things that people do, and you just stay on course. And I I've just been I graduated from the University of Miami, man. Most of the guys that I went to high school with, middle school with the exception of a couple, they've spent a bunch of time in prison, dead before they're 21. And here I am, you read my background. To get to the University of Miami was a miracle in itself. and so I have to be happy, man. That's just added to the fact of making me happy. And like I said, I love what you said earlier, Roy, about giving, not expecting anything back, right? And so
Yeah.
but I also believe that if you put enough out there, it's going to come back to you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
got to put enough out there, and it's going
Yeah.
to come back to you. And so I'm like, man, shoot, I have no time for that. And again, coming to the brotherhood back in school, um, I could have gone in with this mindset that, people weren't going to be nice to me. And it was just the opposite. I
Yeah.
didn't go. I went in with that, with a positive mindset, and I got positive outcome.
Yeah.
So that's
And you've always been a very, very positive person. I mean, I would say let me give Jack his jacket because you first of all you touched me before with regards to us being in college and I was how do you say an inspiration for you for the grind. Sean, you were the same for me. I mean, there were weekends in college where I was going off to have good times, and you were suiting up and fatigues and backpacks and going out to God knows wherever else in the Everglades and wherever else to give service to your country. So likewise, an inspiration for me, man. Um,
yeah,
and so happy that we can connect on this platform and share your story with the others that are out there. Um,
right.
so tell me, you know, what are three pieces of advice uh, you know, given the current situation, uncertainties, with regards to whether economic situations will get better or not, et cetera.
Right.
We talked before about adversity building character, but not everybody has it in them to really see that sometimes.
Right.
So what are three pieces of advice that you say you would offer to others based on your experience?
Well, so another crazy good experience. I got to work for the Truist Leadership Institute for 3 years, and you got to come to some of our
Yeah,
programs, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, you know, I started my career listening to like Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, just put them on repeat. And I'm a big believer in repeat, 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 because you never catch things the first time. And so I put those things on repeat where it keeps the positive mindset. And then fast forward to um 2016, I get hired on at the BB&T, what is now the Truist Leadership Institute. And it's a leadership development organization, which I love. I love this kind of stuff. I just eat. It's so important. And so my adoptive mom in Okeechobee, she bought a compound, and I was trying to convince her to turn it into a leadership institute back in like '06 or 2006. Yeah, '06. But the big thing, one thing I'm gonna tell you is that um, the human condition, our brains are wired to be negative. So I would encourage everyone and anyone to fight through those urges. I have stickers on my computer and my car just reminding me to stay positive, because the brain is wired to be negative, this fight or flight mindset. And so that's one thing that I would highly, highly, highly recommend. I wasn't, that wasn't one of the things that I originally thought about, but yes, absolutely. And then you said three things, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got two more to go.
All right, got it. Well, I know there's a big push these days on health, right? I'm a big believer health is wealth. That what you put into your body is your temple, and it's very important. And I can recall when I first started at one of the companies back in a day, when I was interviewing with them, they were kind of making fun of me for being a medic, right? And not fun that my service, like, how does that relate to finance, Sean? You want a finance type of job? But that showed me and gave me the discipline to take care of my body and my temple, and I don't have to worry about being sick. And it's just a lot of stuff that I try not to take it for granted, especially again as a black man. I know that my white colleagues are gonna, they don't have to knock on as many doors as I do, and I'm okay with that. And so it's kind of like it's the Michael Jordan didn't mind having to put up 10,000 shots versus someone else, and so I took on that mindset, right? And so
That's a great. I like that.
yeah. And so I've always been like, okay, cool. You don't want to work? I will. And so, and then, I also believe truth is everything. And so you cannot walk around here if you are not true to yourself, Roy. If you don't put in the work, you're not going to get the outcomes, and you can't
True.
cry and murmur and complain. You got to put in the work. And so, like I said to you, I could have given up a ton of times because things just didn't go my way. But I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna knock on the doors, and I've actually just made it fun. It's like a game at this point, So anyway, those are the three, pieces of advice that I would definitely, especially the first one. I think the first one we, we didn't realize it, right? It's kind of like the whole mental health crisis that we're going through in this country, and I'm a huge believer that yes, that's real. It's real. And, I unfortunately I had to deal with that with my mom when I was at Deloitte for about 8 years, and it became real to me, not realizing the severity of it. And so, I just think that we need to be mindful of what we're putting into our minds and our thought patterns, because it's real. So,
And so important that you touched on the mental health. Actually, all three pieces of advice were incredible. But mental health is one that, yes, it affects a lot of people. It's not something that nobody walks around with a sign that advertises it. But sometimes we don't know what people are going through, right? And
that's right. That's right.
I've often, I've been in places where I see people having a difficult time or a bad day, and I'm, and sometimes you encounter people that how do you say, emanate that towards you, and just maybe taking a step back and saying, man, you know what, I have no idea what that person is going through. I have
That's
no
right.
idea what their life is like.
That's right.
Let me not fuel the fire, but maybe take a step back and give them. They needed that moment to exhale, right?
That's right.
One of the things you also talked about was health, and so it's a perfect segue, because one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I don't know how you do it because you're like a busy bee all over, but you still maintain that a healthy work-life balance, right? You find time for you have two wonderful sons, and very very much into sports, etc. A beautiful, successful wife who's standing there side by side with you. How do you manage this? This
Yeah.
busy, connected to the community, and doing all this stuff, and then this home life, and the health in between.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, bro. It's not easy. It's not easy. But I fight. It's a part of my purpose, again, in order for me to be a beacon of hope in our community. I have to do it. I don't want to do it. Shoot, I'd rather eat fried chicken all day, every day on Sunday. I'd rather eat. I haven't eaten a pancake in 10 years. Once I heard that the gluten was causing me some health issues, I stopped all of the gluten stuff, all of the pastas and things like that. But I love that stuff. I love spaghetti, and it's not easy, but I had to lean into my purpose. And so one of my favorite books is the book Man's Search for Meaning, by Viktor Frankl. And so it talks about when you know your why, you can endure anyhow. And so I lean into that. You know what? Again, I would love to eat that stuff, but I'm like, man, I just can't. In order for me to be, the person that I've been assigned to be, I can't eat it. I have to be diligent and disciplined, and to focus on, Roy, there's in Orlando, there's probably 6 bankers, maybe 10 professional service people in this town. I've been here 30 years, and there's 10. That is like mind blowing to me, and it's mind numbing at the same time. It's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? What are we talking about? And so I have to, some people may think I don't stand up, but I stand up for my community. I stand up for the community, and I have a purpose to drive the community a certain way. And you lead by example. My leaders at Deloitte, we worked 30-hour days, and the senior partners were working 30 hours with us. They didn't have us working 30, and they were working 5. And so I saw their work ethic and how they led, and I'm like, if they do it, you know what? Again, that's how I have to do it. And so, we have
that's an ideal, I would say, case of leading by example, because rarely do you see where senior level, is in the trenches with the rest of the team, putting in just as many hours. So that trickled down to you, and you've been able to use that as a platform to move forward and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I've been very blessed to be around people that lead and led by example. And it's like, oh, that's how you do. Okay, cool. All right. That's what I have to do. And so it's very difficult. It was very difficult, but now it's kind of easy to say, no, I can't eat that. I'm sorry. So that's
and I'm I would think that your journey that you've traveled, and having the, I'm not going to stop until you tell me no, having that drive to be, how do you say, seeing things to completion, and then the other side of you helping, etc. You are, I guess where I'm going with this is that, you have now become a role model for others in the community, right? And the youth,
I hope
etc.
so. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Sometimes I look behind me and I don't see many, but that doesn't stop me from moving forward. Again, it goes back to what I said to you about being, an outside of the box thinker, critical thinker. I don't see many behind me, but I'm not giving up.
Right.
And it's just, we haven't hit the right thing that can get them to come behind me. And again, I don't want to be an MLK. I'd prefer to be under the radar. I helped build the African American Chamber in this town. In my last event, we had Maxine Waters. My last event as chair, we had Maxine Waters here with standing room only, and I didn't even want recognition. I let the other people do it, and it's not about that for me. But I do want to make a difference, Roy. I do. It's important for me.
Well, I know that you are.
Yeah, that's why I'm still fighting and trying to stay in shape, and not trying, but staying in shape and watching my eat, because again, I'm doing it for a community, not just for myself.
I hear you. Well, keep at it, man. Keep at it. And so let's go back here to that little nugget you dropped just now. And you said one of the favorite books that you read. Can you share a couple maybe that you think, would be really important for up and coming business leaders, to read that could, and maybe give a nugget or two out of each that you think will help move them ahead?
Yeah. Well, for me, Roy, most of the books that I read, Roy, are biblically based. And so I'm going to say this, the Bible.
Yeah.
The Bible is an incredible instrument to just help with the things that we're talking about, giving you guidance, directions. If you read the Proverbs or the Psalms and things like that, they talk about perseverance. There's, my favorite stories. And I use, this is another one that I use. I was talking about this last week with my baby son's basketball, one of his the parents there. But, when you think about, and some people say, oh, these are just like hokum. I heard something the other day, like somebody was on hallucinogens when they came up with these stories. And so I don't believe that, but if it takes you to believe that, to read it, I would encourage you to read it. So in the book of Joshua, Caleb and Joshua, the Lord had told Moses, we need to send some people to look into the promised land, and come back and give us a report. And so 12 people go over. Caleb and Joshua were the only two that said, man, there's grapes as big as our heads. We got to go there. But the other 10 were scared. And but the moral of the story was that, I lean into the Caleb's and the Joshua's, and also in the same book, the book of Joshua, the Lord told them, I'm going to take you there, but you have to go through this body of water. But I'm not going to part the water until you take a step. So they're walking into the Mississippi River. They didn't know if he was going to part the waters or not. It's like, if you're stepping, the waters don't part in 30 feet of water, And so again, so I would encourage, I don't want to be biblical, but my faith is there. And that's the book that I would definitely encourage people to read, because there's incredible nuggets. And most of the self-help people that I grew up listening to, the Zig Ziglars, Les Browns of the world, even E.T., the hip hop, prophet, today, they're all leaning into the Bible. And so that's a book. And then I also, the purpose-driven life. I'm a big believer in understanding what your purpose in life is. And we all have purposes. What I loved about the Black community a generation ago, my mom's generation and below, these people, like my wife's grandparents, they were day laborers and janitors, but they had no debt. Their house was paid off. Their cars were paid off. They had extra property paid off. And these people understood, again, leaning into the Bible, they understood, the importance of these things and how, it can help. And so, they knew what their purposes were. So they were fighting a purpose and saying, hey, you're not going to hold us down because we're going to have these assets as well. And so the Purpose-Driven Life is another great book. that I read, and I've read that multiple times. Matter of fact, the role that I had got at Deloitte, we were doing that Bible study together, and that's when John, but yeah, that's another great book that I would highly recommend. And for those, there's a lot of books out there. I was never one big into reading a lot of books, Roy, just because I don't have time.
Right.
It's just kind of like getting an MBA. I'm like, I'm gonna do the bootleg version of it. I'm gonna do the bootleg version of it. I don't have time. I gotta make
Yeah.
calls. I got
Yeah.
sales calls to make, and I gotta take care of my temple. So I can't be up all night, every night, eating bad food to stay up. And so I just refuse to. So I'm not I have a ton of books. I've read a ton of books early in my career, but later on in my career, I'm not a big voracious. I lean on what I know.
Amen. Amen to
Yeah.
that. And you know what? There's a saying, the school of hard knocks, but the book of hard knocks is probably the biggest one in everybody's lives, right? I mean, going through that real life experience. I mean, we take nuggets out of books, and sometimes we take them verbatim, right? And
Right.
for some people, they work, they don't work, they give up. But us going through and like you, I lean a lot on my experiences as well. Um, Following my gut instincts in terms of, okay, this may be a right decision or not. Going back
Right.
to the story you said before about not parting the river and the people being concerned as to whether or not the river would part, taking risks, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes if you want to, I said this to my kids as well, sometimes it's the people will open doors for you, but it's what you put into it is what's gonna keep that door open
Open.
and
Absolutely.
actually open others along its path down that corridor for you.
Right.
And so great lessons there, and great. I thank you for sharing those books.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, if you could go back into this, and you've had an amazing career, one that you created, and that's I'm also a firm believer in creating your own opportunities, right?
Right.
If you could go back and change one aspect of your journey, what would it be and why?
Hey, Roy, I'm gonna piggyback off of you with creating, right? Back when we were in college, the saying by the football team, which we were the dominant football
Yep.
program, and it wasn't
Yep.
even close, right? When we were in college, and so Jimmy Johnson started this saying before he left for Dallas: the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yep.
And so that's stuck with me since college. That's another one of those little isms that I lean into. But you had asked about a regret that I had. Is that am I remembering?
Well, if you could change one thing, and it
Yeah, if I
doesn't
could
have to
change
be
one
one
thing,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, if I could change one thing, the one thing that again, when I did the magazine, I walked away from my book of business instead of going independent. I knew different places to go, and probably I probably wouldn't have done that. If I could change it, other than I'm gonna say, other than being Elon Musk rich right now, if I could change and be that, I would do that. But realistically, if I would not have walked out I would have gone independent and tried to do the magazine simultaneously, and do it that way. But yeah, I don't regret that.
Right.
Because again, I do believe that I've been called to serve my community.
And that you do, my friend, that you do. And so let me, we're rounding off the top here, and I have two more questions I want to ask you, and this, based on your experience, etc. What emerging trends do you believe will be the most significant impact on the future of your industry
Right.
and Central Florida, and why?
Right. Well, we've already told everybody we go back a long way. So part of my answer, they're going to think that I'm trying to throw you a plug, but the reality of life and society that we live in, right now, probably the biggest trend in banking right now is just the whole digital transformation, going digital, doing things on your phone. Our bank at South State, which is what I love about our bank. We don't have many branch locations. We I think we have 7 in Central Florida. That's Seminole, Orange, and a part of Lake County. And when Truist and when BB&T and SunTrust merged, that was the big thing, right? We got to get rid of these branch locations. So digital transformation, everything going online, and then fraud. Cybersecurity is huge right now. There was what was it, $10 billion of fraud last year. And so it used to be that the banks would, and this is, I'm not speaking in this capacity as a leader of South State Bank. However, fraud is fraud, and everybody is dealing with it. And it used to be that you would come to the bank and say, hey, I got my account got wiped out. That stuff's going away. The bank's not taking, they're not taking ownership. And you spoke on this a couple of months ago. The bank's not taking ownership. It's the customer's responsibilities now to make sure that they have the right tools in place to prevent that stuff from happening. So those are the big, AI's out there. I don't know enough to talk about AI. It's so big, and I'm just one component of a larger bank. So I don't know what's going on in the back office as far as AI is concerned. I'm on calls with you and some of the other people that are trying to understand and use AI to benefit my business. And my business extends not just with the bank, right? I have my own personal brand, Sean Murphy brand, that just so happens to work at South State Bank. And so when I step out of my house, I'm representing me. Nice. The bank is secondary to that, to be honest. They probably don't like that, but they need to know that.
And actually, to their benefit, because you're setting a high standard for yourself that then translates into the work that you do for them and that clients, etc. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. When they see my kids and they see my wife, they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. We want to be a part of that brand. We want to link our brand up and come together as a team." And so that's what I hope to do. And so, with that being said, those are the things that's the trend that's not going away. You know this. Again, I was with one of my colleagues a couple of weeks ago. We were on a sales call, and we had heard from a client that like postal workers are getting robbed right now, so that they can get access to checks. Yeah, and so they can take the checks, wipe them clean, and send them out. It's amazing what's going on. And so, cybersecurity is huge, and you cannot allow that stuff to just be like, well, I'm not worried about that right now. No, it's very important and that's where the bank, is putting a line in the sand. So, and that's where society is putting a line in the sand as well. So,
amen for that. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions with regards to cybersecurity in the bank, and you are right. We've seen a lot, not only the banks, but the insurance companies also are saying, no mas, we're not covering this anymore. But one of the biggest things is, particularly when you speak to business owners, and it comes to cyber, a lot is, hey, if something happens, I'm covered by the FDIC and et cetera, but that actually deals with bank insolvency and not necessarily fraud. So people have I think a bit of maybe shouldering a little bit of comfort on the fact that maybe the bank will put back the money, but the bank is not obligated to put back the money.
That's right.
You where I would say at a more mature stage of cybersecurity now, where the bank is saying, no, you need to take care and put a fence around your own property.
That's right. And look, we'll help you put the fence. It's not like that by yourself. So we have tools to help you put around that fence around your house, so you're not alone.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you for that and for that insight. And so one of my last questions that I typically leave here and for everyone is, if you could create a dream board of advisors with influential people from any time period, so you can turn back time if you need to, who would you choose, why, and how would they contribute to your journey?
Excellent. Yeah. I have 3 people that comes to mind, and that allows us to have, for them, to be able to advise me into, 2-1, 3-0. There's always a tiebreaker, right?
Right.
But the first one is actually Malcolm X. Huge fan of who he was as a man from what I read and what I saw in the movie. When I was at the University of Miami, I read his book multiple times. And so, a guy who persevered, you're in prison, you get sent to prison, you don't know how to read, you teach yourself how to read under the light of, inside of a cell at night, because you can't do it during the day. And then another person that may throw people off is KFC, Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Here's a guy. Oh, let me go back to Malcolm. Again, I think he was a critical thinker, outside of the box kind of guy. And that's I'm always looking for a solution. I'm not, hey, let's find a solution. Let's find a way to come together, put bygones aside, and let's figure out how we make this thing work. And so I'm a solution loving. I love finding solutions. And I think Malcolm could have been that kind of guy. KFC is another one. This guy had been trying for decades to create a restaurant. And the day he got his first Social Security check in his 60s is when he launched KFC. And so here's a guy for 40 years. And these are both stories that I, read when I was in college that helped me get that a part of that perseverance. And so, again, I would think that he would be outside of the box thinker. And then finally, King David, another one, I think that would be an outside of the box thinker, because crazy things happen to him, right?
Yeah.
Here he is, you get picked over by all, the prophet comes and is trying to find who's going to be the next king. And you have like 10 brothers and you're not even in the conversation. And the man's like, no. You have another son? Oh yeah, we have that little scrawny one over there. And, he was the one. And that's another one of those things, Roy, about my life that I lean into. In today's environment, I love being the black guy. Now, I don't like being the only black guy, but I'm like, man, what are you talking about? This is fertile opportunities, because people don't care. This isn't 1960 where my mom and my aunt and uncles couldn't have a professional job like I had. This is an opportunity where people are looking for competent people. And if you are willing to put in the work, most people don't care.
And create the opportunities for yourself, right? Because a lot of times we think that, how do you say, we're waiting for something to be given to us.
That's right.
We have to go out and create that opportunity.
That's right.
And you did that, Sean. I mean, from your entire journey that you shared with us, from the streets of New Orleans all the way to Okeechobee, Coral Gables, Tampa, Orlando. What an amazing journey, and what an amazing person. And not because I know you, but because I know you, and because I see the impact that you bring to others and how you go above and beyond to help others. You mentioned something before about, never always looking for a solution. You reminded me of one of my former employees and colleagues when I owned my telecom company, and his favorite saying was, never a problem, always a solution.
Yes.
Having that mindset, never a problem, always a solution. We're going to find it. We're going to create it if we need to, right? And getting back to creating that opportunity. Sean, this has been incredible. I sit here proudly because of I was trying not to age us, but you said about 30 years. So,
well, listen, when we look as good as we do, you know what? Age ain't a number.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. But thank you for sharing this journey with us, and thank you for being you and who you are, and for being you who you are. For the last 30 something years that I've known you, you haven't changed, buddy. And I appreciate that. You've always there willing to give, the right advice to others. You're always making yourself available. And to have gone through that journey that you went through to make it to where you are, and being as humble as you are, but still hungry as you are. Amen to you, brother. Amen.
Well, thank you. You can't do it alone. And like I said, I don't say this because you're on the pod with me, but you've been a part of it. I remember when you called me when you were thinking about moving here, And you know, those kind of things leave indelible marks in my life anyway. You know, it's like, man, you called me to ask me what I thought about you moving to Orlando. You know, that you don't forget things like that, and that tells you that, you know, you bring value to people's lives, and it just encourages, and it's kind of like watering, you know, a plant, man. And so I appreciate you and what you've done, and definitely appreciate the time. And yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, my friend. And so, Sean, quickly, if a member of our audience today wanted to get in touch with you, or to get more info, etc., how would they reach out to you? What's the best way to reach out?
Well, I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. You know, they can reach me at my Sean.Murphy@southstatebank.com email address, or my cell phone, 407-963-5981. Very, very active. LinkedIn for the professional people, definitely, that's the place to be. I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's one place where, like I said, I'm just trying to be value add to our community. And so I spend quite a bit of time there. So.
Awesome. This has been real. It's been a pleasure. And now I do have one final thing. And this is actually a surprise for the audience, because my friend Sean here is actually going to be joining me as the co-host of the Dynamic Business Leaders podcast moving forward. So Sean, welcome to the other side of the
yeah, man. Well, thank you again. It's amazing. Like I said, that we got linked up like this. Again, it goes back to what I said to you earlier about when you live in purpose and you know what your purpose is. You know, trying to launch the magazine. Again, the magazine was not about me making a ton of money. Yes, I wanted to make money, but it was also just trying to be a beacon of hope out there. And so for you to have this, and like I said, when I listen to the pods, I'm like, man, this is amazing. And so I am thrilled, Roy. You have no idea how happy I am about it, and how I'm looking forward to changing some lives, man, and adding some serious value to our state, our city. And, you know, I think that, you know, I'm looking forward to it.
And you know what? You said the state and the city, but we're digital and we're virtual. So we're gonna together and hopefully impact the lives of people worldwide, man.
Yeah,
I'm happy to have you here as my wingman.
Yeah.
Looking forward to our first co-hosting segment together. All right.
Very good.
You stay safe, brother. Thank you very much.
Same.
Amazing. Amazing journey. And I think that I could say this confidently, that you have created footsteps along the path of your journey and made that path clear for others to follow. So thank you, and God bless.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. God bless you as well, brother. We'll talk soon.
You got it.
Hi, I'm Roy Richardson, host of the Dynamic Business Leaders podcast. Are you a business owner or a leader of a successful business? If yes, we'd love to have you as a guest on our podcast. Our goal is simple. We provide a platform for leaders to share their experiences to benefit others. We want to hear your story, how you got started, the challenges you faced along the way, and your passion today. If this sounds like you, or if you know someone who fits the criteria, then be sure to visit our website at dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. That's dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to be notified when our next podcast video is live. Or, if you'd rather listen to us during your car ride, you can also follow us on your favorite audio channel using the corresponding links below. Thanks, and once again, keep crushing it.